Thank you very much, Steve. And we start here this evening. Deloitte Africa has published its Consumer Tracker report today on the state of the South African consumer. The tracker findings show that in spite of a high cost of living and amid financial stress, that South African consumers actually intend to splurge over the holiday season. Just how different is the situation in South Africa compared to the 24 other countries where Deloitte conducted the survey? For that and answers to that question, we speak to Rodger George, who is Deloitte Africa's head of consumer industry leadership. Rodger, thank you very much for joining us for this discussion. Just 2 weeks ago, we were talking about ProfMed stress index, which actually has found that for the first time in 2 years, COVID-19 is no longer the #1 stress that the general public, or professionals rather, are going under. In this particular study, there's been similar findings. COVID-19 is no longer the big talking point or a big stress point, but financial stress remains one of the top drivers of anxiety for consumers.
Yeah, absolutely, Gordon. Thanks very much for having me on the show. We have found that, in fact, we surveyed 24 countries, and we've been doing this over the last 24 months. And one of the sad things for South African consumers is that our consumers, in terms of all the countries surveyed, are the third highest, most anxious consumers in the globe. And if you unpack what the reasons behind that are, certainly financial stress is very definitely one of those. Some of the survey data coming out says that 57% of consumers are actually saying that they're earning the same or less than they did 1 year ago, which obviously is bringing a lot of financial stress into the market. And if you think about the fact that I'm earning 57% are saying I'm earning less than I did last year, and then you've got rising inflation and rising prices, what that translates into is you have less to spend. And when you've got less to spend, that's quite a stressful thing to do. And of course, you're going to divert your spend firstly to the non-discretionary items. And then what you have available, you've got to split between what we call discretionary views. So bringing a lot of stress and anxiety into the system of consumers.
Rodger, we just heard from FNB today saying that the South African consumers who are part of FNB actually spent 3 billion rand on Black Friday, and that is the highest in 4 years. So bringing that sort of stress to the consumer side, it's no surprise that 45% of South Africans are the most, say they are actually anxious, and that's why South Africa follows Brazil and Poland, which are #1 and 2 when it comes to the most anxious countries. And it's clear it's because the gap between incomes and the cost of living continues to grow.
Absolutely. Regarding the spend sort of over Black Friday, what our survey has found is that people are shopping more for bargains and looking more for sort of value offerings. So the consumer with less to spend naturally will migrate to finding those items that suits their pocket. 50% of consumers actually are saying that they're going to delay that big ticket purchase going forward and divert more of the spend to sort of the day-to-day necessities that we need in our house. So very, very constrained consumer. If you look at the inflation at the moment, running at over 7%, Reserve Bank saying that that's likely to continue above the target band to at least Q1 2024, I think consumers are going to be quite focused in terms of how they shop and how they behave. And it's quite interesting to look at the data coming out of our research, where people are actually spending much more time before making a purchase at home, thinking about where to shop, what to buy, doing more online research, and then shifting their behavior. And once getting a sense of where they want to spend their money, they'll go out and find those bargains.
What you've just spoken about was going to be my next question, in fact, and I still want to hear from you that a lot of people are understandably saying these are hard times, but it seems like 2023 is going to be harder for consumers because we still expect interest rates to rise. There's an expectation that there could be a global recession, and of course inflation, as you said, is not going to taper off until at least the fourth quarter of 2023.
Yeah, fully agree. 69% of consumers are actually saying we're very concerned about the level of savings that we have. If they're looking 1 year into the future, people have little confidence about their salaries or their income increasing. And in fact, only 39% of people are saying, they are not concerned about their financial situation 5 years hence. So there definitely is a lot of stress in the system. And I do think that, for retailers and folk in the market, the next year is going to be tough. We are going to have the sort of traditional South African Christmas spend, and I think spend over there is going to be moved to food and beverage and sort of the things that we need to do to just cheer ourselves up. But come next year, it's going to be quite a tough year. And interestingly enough, one of the things that consumers in the survey did say is that they were concerned about the cost of education, and a lot of them saying that that is a concern in terms of how they would afford the accommodation and also the education, and of course also the stuff that goes around it, the back to school. So I expect activity, lots of promotional activity to come from retailers over the next year. I expect consumers to be very tight-fisted, to be really shopping around for bargains. And if you think about it, retailers traditionally have been sort of the folk that try and keep inflation at bay. So I do expect the retailers to fight inflation and try and keep the prices down so that consumers will continue to shop at their stores.
Rodger, there's an interesting take here on the survey about the South African wallet and what we are spending money on. When you look at housing, groceries, health and education is part of the mix, transportation, but saving and investing is really the last thing that these consumers are actually thinking about these days. What does that mean going forward in terms of saving and investments decreasing over the next couple of months?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you've got less to spend and you need to take the wallet that you have and put it on the non-discretionary items, which you were speaking about, you will divert spend away from the more discretionary items, such as eating out, such as restaurants. And also savings is going to suffer because you don't have that much disposable income. So you're almost caught in that income gap where salaries and income is flat or decreasing, and then what you have is prices are increasing. So people are going to spend less. There has been a tendency to move toward credit and to deplete savings to actually buy and consume. And what that does is it actually decreases the savings rather than increase the savings. And as I said a moment ago, 69% of consumers are concerned about their ability to save, which means the medium and the longer term future is a concern for a number of people. And of course, that affects the way you think about spending and your sentiment as you spend and as you travel.
Rodger, thank you very much for your time this evening. Rodger George is the head of consumer research and lead industry researcher at Deloitte Africa, talking to us there about their latest findings that South Africa remains financially stressed in this particular survey that looked at 24 countries, with South Africa coming out third as being the most anxious when it comes to consumers about the future of the finances and their pockets.